am going to, there is a document that I'm kind of reading from that's in the chat. So I always want people to ask questions. I would like them asked in the chat because then that goes in the chat history and then I can remember what the questions were later on. I usually try to answer them right away, but sometimes when the same questions keep coming up in different presentations, it means I need to address it more seriously. Today we are here just to talk about 26 LinkedIn tips for 2026. I was asked to do this presentation for SCORE, and I did, and I had so much fun with writing. I've done this every year for different groups, and I have so much fun with it. I decided I would host it on my own. And when I host it on my own, I'm also at the very end of it allowed to give some pitches. So we'll do that too. So before we go into that, though, we're going to talk about why we're going to be on LinkedIn and then why we're going to talk to Mary. Why LinkedIn? LinkedIn is a great platform in the US. Most of the people make over 100,000 a year. Most of the people have higher educations. If you're looking for people that are in the C-suites or in management, that's a good place to find them. The other couple of things about LinkedIn is most people are on LinkedIn, their brain is in job mode. So that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about business. They're thinking about um, business related things. They're thinking about looking for resources. If you are working with people that may have a full-time job but might be looking to change some things around, you can often, depending on your employer, be on LinkedIn while you're at work and call it a work thing. Not a bad thing because you can reach a different audience that way. And the average LinkedIn user has an attention span longer than that of a goldfish. Because of the way the algorithm works over on Instagram and TikTok and other places, they're really gearing it toward those short attention spans. And if you've got a lot of great information to share, you want to share it with people that want to dig a little bit deeper, and LinkedIn is the place for that. Why, Mary? I'd like to say that I'm brilliant, but we're kind of taught not to do that. We're always taught, don't brag on yourself. So I'm going to bring you the receipts and I'm going to suggest if you want to know more about me, you go to my LinkedIn profile and look at the recommendations I've received from people. And you can also look, there's a link in the document that I sent. There's John Asperian is a guy in the UK. He runs the UK's, it's kind of the only focused LinkedIn conference in the UK, maybe even in the EU. He also runs a LinkedIn podcast that's fairly well listened to. So he knows about LinkedIn and he considers me one of the LinkedIn guides to follow. So my humans like me and my cohorts like me. That's good. All right, so we've checked that all out. Now we're going to start on 26 tips. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. And there is a user agreement for LinkedIn. If you print it out, it has 17 pages, not counting the links from the pages. So one of the things I like to do when I'm doing any training is focus on what the user agreement actually says. Some trainers are still training things that go against the user agreement, and that just like, it bothers me. I'm not going to name names. I'll just say it bothers me. And so, make sure whoever you're hanging out with is trying not to lose your count on you. 26 tips, and I'm going to be talking. If we need to see things later, we can I can share screen later, but we're just going to chat for now. Number one is the profile photo. It's often the first thing people hone in on. My big tip for the profile photo is that I call it the coffee shop rule. You want that to look like you do if somebody's meeting you at a coffee shop. We're having fun right now, taking images and enhancing them with AI and doing a lot of fun things. And that's okay for some uses, but for your profile photo, we want it to look like you. For your banner photo that spreads out across the top, You don't even have to have your picture in there, but you need to be considering as you're working with that, who's going to be looking at your stuff and how are they going to be looking at it. There's one, Richard Vanderbloom is a fairly popular LinkedIn expert, and he has a scrolling thing and lots of words on his. And I know who he is, and I know who his audience is. And his audience is typically coming in and looking at his stuff on a desktop. So when you're looking at things on a desktop, it has a different view than when you're looking at things on a phone. So he can get away with lots of words. Another person I know, Ashley Leeds, another LinkedIn expert, he has his banner photo. There's lots of really large words and not many of them. He predominantly works with accountants. They're typically coming in on the phone. So he likes to have that a little bit sharper. Hi, Monica. We started a little bit, but I'll probably send out recordings later today or tomorrow. Have to look at my schedule and see what I can fit in before PT. But you'll be able to get, and I'm going to mute all just in case there's background noise. If you have questions, make sure to drop them in the chat and I can get back to those later. And I'm pasting in the little thing with the doc so that Monica can get at that. Number 3, and this is one of the first things that actually directly relates to the user agreement, use your legal name. For a while, it was very popular to use extended versions of your name. Like for instance, if I went in and said LinkedIn Whisperer or Mary Will LinkedIn Whisperer. Or for a while, it was popular to pop emojis in the name to bring a little bit of more visibility. The problem with that is, according to the user agreement, you can't do that. And LinkedIn does not always make people follow the rules that it has, but it sometimes does. And it's about as predictable as whether the groundhog's right or wrong. You don't really know if they're going to go after somebody or not. So what you have to do is either use your legal name or decide what your risk factor is. You're an adult and you can determine that. But I like to play things a little bit more cautious because I've seen people lose their account. Some people even for weeks and get them back. And I had to work with somebody once who lost their account completely. So we want to make sure that we're not doing things that are going to get you to lose your account. And I'm telling you this now because like when somebody calls me and says, I've lost my account, what do I do? My answer is usually, call me 3 months ago. Like there at that point in time, I can't do it. I can't do much. I can fight a little bit with you though. Sometimes get some stuff to happen if we're very lucky. The next thing we run across is the headline. That is 220 characters, and that can be pure gold. A lot of people tend to do things like put in CEO, founder, something really boring. Oh, when I'm working one-on-one with people, we try to hone in on what exactly their contacts, their connections, the people they're reaching out to want to know about them, what problem they solve. We try to use that as a little bit like a 10-second elevator pitch. And maybe put in something a little bit personal in there. I actually put in that I play with stuffed plushies, like that's okay. And I think in lyrics, it brings out a little bit of your personality, which in some cases may possibly turn people off. But if you are working with people and your personality is going to come through anyway, sooner or later they'll get turned off. So let's just put a block in it at the front. Yes, I'm a little bit off normal, but we all are. So we don't try to fit in a box. We fit where we are. Contact info is important. It's all that anybody will see. If I look at yours, Katie, or yours, Jessica, all they'll see is just the contact info button, and then they'll be able to press on it. You have to determine what you want in there. You can choose to have your phone number or your email address. But the other thing I like to mention with this tip, which is tip 5, is to make sure that with LinkedIn, you have multiple email addresses attached to it. I know of people that have had their email address attached to whatever job they had, and they were suddenly shown the door and had no access to their email anymore, which then meant they had no access to get back to their LinkedIn account because they couldn't get to that email. So make sure you have at least two, so there's different ways to find them if something happens. And this is also a good thing to mention if you're working with college kids that might be using their university address. Yeah, you're not always going to have that one. Even if they say you will, another team can come in and decide that you don't. So always have a couple. The next thing we run across, okay, and I've got these listed in like groupings. This is where we call additional sections. The about section is another place where I like to always start off addressing what somebody needs to know about you. We've been trained and geared that the about section is about you. It's like a bio, but most people are tuning in to find out what they need from you and not who you are. So we need to try to address the who you are and what you bring to the table. And every person brings a unique thing to the table. So we need to dig around. We need to find out what that is and make sure that's at the top of the about section. I did mention that the average LinkedIn user has an attention span longer than that of a goldfish, but you've got to grab them in that first 6 seconds if you want to keep them going along. So make sure you grab them in like that first 2 or 3 lines of the about section, and then you can go on and talk about your history, what values you've brought, what wins you've gotten for people. But first reach out and say, this is what you need to know about me. A section that is often neglected, and you may or may not have one, is a featured section. Oh, sorry, the babysitters, my grandson's babysitter is here and I'm hearing voices. I'm trying to determine if there's anything I need to worry about. I don't think there is. The featured section is a place where you can put Bill, like that little thing that you have right behind you over there on the left, that you could take a PDF of that and put it in your featured section. I like to see people do intro videos on their featured section. If you're a speaker, you can put a speaker one sheet or a speaker reel in your video section, in your featured section. But where the featured section shows up, it shows up even before the post. So people see it pretty soon. And if they want to dig in, that's a great place to have people dig in. And then we go through all of our experiences. This is tip 8 is what we do with the experience sections. So we can choose which experiences to have or not have. If something has gone along your life and you've had a career break, there is a way now to fit that in LinkedIn. They added that a couple of years ago. So if you're worried that people are looking and seeing that you didn't do anything for a number of years, you could fit that in. That is a little bit more of value to job seekers than it is to entrepreneurs, to business people. So if you're an individual business person, you might not have to worry about that too much. And a lot of that then also goes back to depend on who your clients are. Education comes way down. The reason education is important, though, is because we like people who are like us, people who have commonalities. So where you went to school might be important to somebody who's looking for your services or looking to connect with you and sees, oh, you went to the same school. That gives you a little bit more value to humans if there's commonalities. If you're looking at 2 columns and they both look exactly the same, and this one has something that attracts you, that's where you're going to lean. So make sure you're putting in your education, even if it was maybe more than a few years ago. Tip 10, this is not for everybody. If you have published works, you could put that in there. If you've written scientific papers, I come from a university background, lots of scientific papers I've seen. If you've written a book, if you've published in a magazine, this is a great place to have that. And if you have a book, and somebody sees that in your publication section and click, if you fill it out right and they click on the link, they'll go right to your Amazon page or your web page where that book is sold and they can get it right there. Not everybody gets that far down in the in your profile, but the ones that do are the ones that are really interested. So make sure to keep feeding them stuff. And then another section is the recommendations. And a lot of times people ignore these. I tend to look and see people who will have like batches of recommendations from multiple years. Like all of a sudden, 2014, they had 5 recommendations right before they found a new job. And then 2018, they have 3 recommendations when they started something else. And you can always reach out to people for recommendations. You will not always get them. There is a way next to somebody's name up at the top where it says more. You can click on that and ask somebody for a recommendation. You may or may not get one. The one thing I personally like about LinkedIn recommendations is that if I ask somebody, Bill, I'm asking you for a recommendation, there, boom. Okay, Bill says, I'm going to ignore this. Okay, I'm no worse off than I was before. Bill says, I'm going to send her something. Then I have a choice. I can put it up as is. I could ignore it completely, or I could ask Bill for a slight edit. But nothing goes there that I don't want there. It's not like a Google recommendation or a Facebook where you can put in a review that's negative. That's one of the things I also kind of don't like about LinkedIn is you're not always getting a complete picture. And another secret tip to the recommendation section, if you're looking to work with somebody, if somebody might be hiring you, if somebody might be getting your services, if somebody is a conference leader and is looking for speakers, you can look at the recommendations they've given and you can look at the words they use to tell you the values they hold. When somebody is recommending somebody, they'll recommend the things they like about that person. Now you know what they like, and you could put your wording and conversations to them, sort of following what they already like. We just passed number 11. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I'm going to have a drink of water and come back to the rest next batch. Because it also doesn't stop at 26, because I can't count. Okay, next section is safe, secure, and legal. And number 12 is for everything. Use two-factor authentication. I hate it. I hate every time I go to check into my bank and I want to move money around or something. I have to take this and put this number here. And then I realize what would happen if my account got hacked and realize that that's not really all that much of a pain. Like my husband and I might decide after the past week in Nashville that we're going to go out and get a generator. And if we do, it's going to be a pain to find a place for it in the garage and have to get gas for it. And then it's a lot better than not having heater power. So, you gotta take the good with the bad. And the next thing to do, and I especially encourage this for people that are if you are the type of a person that might get my personal information, you should consider getting your account verified. It's not required, but it does 2 things. If you're in a financial business, banking, it lets me know that you've been verified. So I feel a little bit more comfortable if you're the type of person I might be giving personal information to. The other thing is if something weird happens and you lose your account, you can go back to Facebook and say, see, this is the ID I used when I got verified. See, this is the email I used when I got verified. See, this is me. I want my account back. So if somebody copies your account, it's happened. You can get it back a little bit easier. And then tip number 14 is do not share your login information. If you want to use a VA or somebody to take some actions for you on LinkedIn, they cannot directly link into your account. They can go through Buffer, Hootsuite, Go High Level, but they cannot directly log into your account. There could be, It has happened where like a VA, typically it's an offshore VA, will be logging into 10 or 15 accounts to do actions. And then LinkedIn's like, why is this same IP address logging into all these accounts? And why are these accounts getting logged into from two different countries? And they could decide to shut it down because they know somebody else is logging in issue. Again, this is one of those fun things that LinkedIn may or may not be consistent on. So my goal is to let people know kind of like the worst that could happen and insure yourself against that and decide your own risk factor. Ah, okay. Daily happenings. This is part that we kind of forget about this sometimes. You have to have a plan. One of the things I work with my group members is once a month I have co-working. It's like, what's the plan for next month? I've gone in and looked at blank screens, and we don't do much with them. We just stare at blank screens. So one of the things I like to do is to make sure that you know where you're heading. If you have events coming up, if you have programs coming up, what are you driving people towards? This month we have multiple things happening. It's Valentine's Day, Heart Health Month, Black History Month, National Love Your Dog Day is coming up. There's all sorts of things that happen. Do we want to fit that into what we're talking about? But if you take time and set it apart to figure out where you're heading, then we can work on, it's not as hard to look at a blank screen if you know what's going to be going on it. One thing I have seen is people that don't post when they post once every few months when they've got an event going on. And it really doesn't get that much attention because people aren't regularly seeing your stuff. So they're missing out on some things. So post consistently. This is where a really good trick comes in. If you go to linkedin.com/dashboard, it says, take 3 actions a week between posting and commenting. So when LinkedIn is saying post consistently, they're not saying post 5 times a day. They're saying post. I like to see people do, 1 or 2 times a week. I like to see 3 times a week. I start working with people. Let's get you to 1 or 2 and then move on from there. Okay, Bill, I'll get to that question as soon as I get past daily doings. Okay. Um, Tip number 17 is interact when or around when you're posting. LinkedIn wants to know you're there, and they're not going to feed your stuff to their audience unless you actually interact with it. I have people who say LinkedIn isn't working for me often. I'll go over, I can do this, it's public information. I can go to their account, I can look at their posts. I can also click to see what comments they've left. Sometimes people don't comment on anything anybody else does ever. And so LinkedIn is like, you're not here. I'm not going to show your stuff to people. And people are like, you never comment on my stuff. Why should I comment on yours? And if you don't have other people commenting on your stuff, it's not going up in the algorithm. People aren't seeing it. So interact with other people when you're posting. And tip number 18, this is my favorite. This is my favorite. Comments are of so much value on LinkedIn. People meet in the comment section. I should have done this. I would love it. Maybe I should do that now, starting for this year. Started tracking the number of people that I connect with just basically from stuff that happens in the comments. There's a lot of value in there. You're reacting to something that somebody posted that you found value in. Now you're having a conversation with other people that are finding value in the same information. So it's really a miracle place. I know people who met in the comments, went on to co-host a podcast and co-write 2 books, and they met in comments. So don't neglect the comment section. The other thing you should do as you're making a post, have some kind of a call to action in every post you're making. It could be comment below. It could be ask questions. If you've got an event coming, it could be, hey, register for my event. But we often forget when we're doing posts to make a call to action. And typically, as people are reading any copy, they'll notice the first thing first. You got to have, the grab section, the place where you have like the hook. And they'll notice the last thing second, and then what's in the middle kind of goes there in third place. Before we hit tip 20, I'm going to answer Bill's question. An individual put profile on a company page. Bill, I'm willing to bet if I looked at both of those, there would be a lot more interaction on the individual. I have a nonprofit I work with that has a company page that's valuable for them because you can set admins for a company page and have other people post that. It's also a good place with the company page to have people invite people to the company. But if you're kind of the show, then it might not be as worth it to have a company page. Bill, put the CTA in the post, not in the comment. Put it in the post. It just, and there's also this weird thing about links in posts, whether they should be there or not. They do draw down the attention, but there seems to be more link clicks if the link's in the post than if it's. So you have to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Figure out what works best with your audience. And sometimes that just takes being repetitive and reviewing regularly what's working and what's not working in your place. Now, because the original one of these I did was for a score group, tip number 20 is tip number 20 through 23 are kind of like score type things, business type things. 20 is know your unique value proposition. Depending on where you are, if you have a score chapter near you, they might be having things where they have workshops for that. But a lot of it is what again are you bringing to the table? This goes back to some other tips where, what are you putting in at the top of the about section? There are, especially in some businesses where there's a lot of people doing the same thing, there are so many people that look so much the same. We're trying to differentiate ourselves from the crowd. So knowing what makes you unique is useful. Tip number 21 is know who you're talking to. Who is your client? What pain points do they have that you address, and how can you best address those? So we often will have like one person, but some of us have 2 or 3 clients. And an idea to do when you're kind of like in that staring at the empty screen is to think of one person and write to that one person. And sometimes if you have a couple of different businesses going on, you could have one post a week that kind of goes towards the client in column A and one post a week that goes toward the client in column B if you've got multiple ones. Tip number 22 is to know yourself. Know who you are and value yourself. You've got knowing what you bring to the table, but also knowing who you are. We are taught, as I said when I was telling you why you should be listening to me, we're kind of taught not to brag on ourselves, but we have to be able to do that a little bit. And we also have to be able to bring some authenticity because you are going to turn people off. I promise you. The person that I have that has a nonprofit, she has a digital magazine for teens. Sometimes she might say things that tick off a few people, and that's okay because there was one sort of a feministy spin thing she was going to be putting on her personal profile. And she's like, should I do this? And I'm like, well, you're probably going to tick some people off, but they probably aren't the people that are going to be sending people to the magazine anyway, because they're not interested in, because girls have important things to say. So you're not really that worried about ticking off the wrong people. And number 23, this is kind of goes back to what you said, Bill, about some stuff. Know your numbers, know what your people are reacting to and what they're liking. This is not This is not a place where we can dig into that. We can work together one-on-one. I've got an upcoming class in April where we can start digging into how do you want the numbers? Do you want to do your own spreadsheet? Do you want to go through various things that dig that stuff out? We've gotten to 23. Yes. We've got 3 more and then 3 more after that because I can't count. Number 26, and I hate this one. It's true. LinkedIn is a long game. I would love to be able to say that you're going to 10x your Y2K in 30 days or less. Throw all of these numbers at you, that magical things will happen. It's not the way life works. It's not the way LinkedIn works. And the people that there are people that are telling you that are finding really good value in telling you that, and they're making lots of money by telling you that. But it's not the way life works in the real world. People want to get to know, like, and trust you, and they don't do that overnight. They do that through you being there consistently and helpful. One of the things that we've kind of noticed is the people that are most useful on LinkedIn, the people that are giving the most away, are also the people that are getting the most. It's like, hold on, you've got all that. What's behind the curtain? Connect with and follow people in your industry leaders in your cohorts. I know a lot of people don't like to connect with, there are copywriters that don't want to connect with other copywriters. There are graphic designers that don't want to connect with other graphic designers. But then there are people who are connecting with people that are like them, and this is highly valuable because it's fun to geek out with I'm a LinkedIn expert. It's fun to geek out with them and say, did you guys see what they just shared? And we kind of rumble at each other, and then we're able to go out and put our best foot forward and say, yes, so LinkedIn changed it so that you can only blah, blah, blah. And this is our workaround. And you kind of blow off the steam with your friends in the back room. And you can find those people, and you can possibly find those communities. Official tip 26, which ends the 26 for 26, is do I need premium? I get asked that a lot. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you will see that I have a little gold premium badge, which means I have it. I got it in 2014-ish, and I'm legacied it at $95 a year. Right now, the cheapest premium is $50 a month. And most people that I look at that ask me, should I get premium? I'll look at their profile and I'll say, you're not using even 30% of what you can use for free. Start using what you can use for free first. Then we can talk about potentially going to premium. But if you dive into premium and you're not using even some of what you can use, you're not going to be showing up that strongly. Okay, so then bonus, 3 more tips. 27, connect strategically. Back in the 20-teens, I remember seeing them. There were people called LIONs, LinkedIn Open Networkers. They would connect with anybody at any time, and they'd have tens or hundreds of thousands of connections. And most of those people weren't interested in what they had to say, and they weren't interested in what most of those people had to say. So it was just basically like shouting into an abyss. And I was at the Ryman Auditorium. There's hundreds of seats in there. If you can fill them all, that's fine. But if you're only talking to the people in the first few rows, you might want to get a smaller auditorium and focus on that group of people and not worry about all the people that aren't interested anyway. They've got other things going on. They're not your ideal client. They might not know your ideal client. So don't connect with everyone. Another great tip, and I love to do this when I'm introducing two people, I will typically use LinkedIn to introduce them, because what happens is I star the chat, I see if they both responded, and then I kind of yell at them if they haven't. If I'm connecting people on LinkedIn, I'll put in there, tag them. So now the other person can look right at their LinkedIn profile and go, does this person interest me? It gives you a lot of credit if you're introduced to somebody by somebody else. So I like to do that and I like to check up on people. So who can you connect to who? Who do you know that needs to know somebody else? And 29, tip number 29, I know I'm not doing this enough. Use direct messaging to enhance relationships. If you're looking at your LinkedIn up at the top, there's like a network where it shows what invitations you have, but it also shows what people that are your connections are doing. If it's somebody's birthday, it'll say something like, send them a birthday message. Do not do this. Send them a unique birthday message or send them a birthday video. They love when they get something that's not what everybody else is sending me, because I will get 20, have a great birthday on my birthdays. I don't notice that. I do notice when somebody sends an image or sends a video or sends something a little bit more personal or a voice message, just something that kind of goes above and beyond. Those are the tips. In April, I'm going to be doing a class. If you're interested in digging in deeper and stronger, I also work one-on-one with people, and I'm going to be doing monthly free webinars like this. In about a second, I'm going to stop the recording, but then I'm going to open it up for anybody in this room to talk to me about individual things. We can dig through stuff, and if you want to know more, reach out to me.